The war room fell silent as Admiral Taman finished his report. Around the long metal table sat the last leaders of the Velarin coalition. Their faces showed fear and exhaustion. Outside the window of Sanctuary Prime Station, damaged warships drifted past like dead fish in water. 200 ships, Taman said quietly. That is all we have left. The Kraith swarm has destroyed everything else. Our worlds are burning. Our people are dying. In 3 weeks, maybe less, we will have no more supplies. No more ammunition. No more hope. Counselor Hyejin stood up. She was the coalition's chief diplomat, a woman who had spent her life building peace between different species. Now she looked like she had aged 10 years and 6 months. Her hands shook slightly as she gripped the table edge. There is one option we have not discussed, she said. Her voice was steady, but her eyes showed shame. We could contact Earth. The room erupted in angry voices. Several council members shouted at once. One old general slammed his fist on the table. The humans? Are you insane? They are barely civilized. They almost destroyed their own planet with nuclear weapons. Hyejin raised her hand for silence. I know what we said about them. I was there 50 years ago when we made first contact. I voted to quarantine their system. I called them too dangerous, too aggressive, too unstable. But we are desperate now. They have ships. They have weapons. Maybe they can help us. Admiral Taman looked at the holographic display floating above the table. It showed the Kraith advance in ugly red colors spreading across the star map like blood in water. What kind of fleet do the humans have? He asked. Hyejin pulled up Earth's file. According to our last scan 20 years ago, they have about 40 ships. Small ones. Patrol vessels and frigates mostly. They only achieved faster-than-light travel 30 years ago. They are not a major power. 40 ships, someone laughed bitterly. What good will that do against thousands of Kraith bioships? It is 40 more than we can build in 3 weeks, Taman replied. And if we do nothing, we all die anyway. At least this way we have a small chance. The vote was close. 12 council members said yes. 10 said no. Hyejin felt sick as she accepted the mission to contact Earth. She would be the one to beg for help from the species she had rejected, the species she had called too violent to join civilized society. Commander Minho met her at the docking bay. He was a special forces officer, tall and serious. I will escort you, he said. My team will provide security. You think the humans will attack us? Hyejin asked. Minho checked his weapon. I think we do not know what they have become in 50 years. We locked them in their system and told them they were not good enough for us. They might be angry. The diplomatic ship Meridian's Hope was small and fast. It had to be. Kraith scouts were everywhere now. They traveled for 5 days through empty space. Hyejin spent the time preparing her speech. How do you ask for help from people you insulted? How do you admit you were wrong? She reviewed Earth's history files. Humans had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times. Wars over religion, resources, territory, and ideology. They had created weapons that could kill millions in seconds. Nuclear bombs, biological weapons, chemical gases. They had used all of them on their own people. But something changed 70 years ago. A terrible war finally made them understand they had to unite or die. They created a single world government. They focused on space exploration. They built their first faster-than-light ship and reached for the stars, and the coalition had told them to go back home. Stay in your system. You are too dangerous, too unpredictable, too violent. Hyejin remembered the human ambassador's face when she delivered that message. Hurt, angry, proud. He had said nothing. He just walked away. On the 5th day, they dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Sol system. Hyejin expected to see a few patrol ships, maybe a small space station. What appeared on their sensors made her stand up from her chair in shock. That cannot be right, she whispered. Check the sensors again. The sensor officer's hands moved quickly over his controls. Sensors are working perfectly, Counselor. I am seeing the same thing. Around Mars, massive structures floated in orbit, not cargo stations, not simple factories. These were shipyards, huge ones, the kind that took decades to build, dozens of them. And around Venus, even more. The moons of Jupiter had construction platforms that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. Commander Minho stared at the display. How is this possible? Where did they get the resources? The technology? The knowledge to build all this? A communication channel opened. A human voice spoke in perfect Velarin language. Unidentified vessel, this is Sol System Defense Control. State your identity and purpose. Heejin took a deep breath. This is Counselor Heejin of the Velarin Coalition. We request permission to speak with your leadership. We need help. There was a long pause. Then the voice replied colder than before. Permission granted. Proceed to Luna Station. Follow the nav beacon. Do not deviate from the flight path. Any deviation will be considered hostile action. As they flew deeper into the system, more impossible things appeared. Ships, hundreds of them. But not the small patrol vessels from the old reports. These were massive. Each one was several kilometers long, shaped like angular predators covered in weapon ports and armor plating. Counselor, the tactical officer said quietly, those power readings. I have never seen anything like them. Each of those ships generates more energy than our largest battle cruisers. And there are hundreds of them. Yejin felt cold fear settle in her stomach. The humans had not been idle during their 50 years of isolation. They had not accepted their rejection and given up. They had built something terrifying. Something the Coalition had never imagined possible. Luna Station was enormous. It orbited Earth's moon like a metal city floating in space. Docking bays big enough to hold 50 ships. Defense platforms bristling with weapons. Thousands of humans walking through corridors and working at their stations. Commander Minho and his team formed up around Heejin as they walked through the station. Human soldiers watched them pass. Their uniforms were sharp and professional. Their weapons were advanced. Their eyes were hard. They were led to a conference room. It was simple and functional. No decorations. No comfortable furniture. This was a military station, not a diplomatic one. That told Heejin everything she needed to know about what humanity had become. The door opened. A human officer entered, followed by several others. The lead officer was middle-aged with gray hair and a prosthetic left arm. His uniform had many medals, but his face showed no emotion. He sat down across from Heejin without offering a greeting. I am Fleet Admiral Daeho Kim, he said. Supreme Commander of the United Earth Defense Force. You said you need help. Explain. Heejin swallowed her pride and began to speak. She told them about the Kraith Swarm, about the worlds destroyed and billions killed, about the Coalition's desperate last stand. She showed them holographic footage of Kraith bioships tearing through fleets like they were made of paper. When she finished, Admiral Kim sat quietly for a moment. Then he spoke words that would change everything. 50 years ago we came to you with hope. You sent us away with shame. You called us violent, dangerous, not worthy to stand with civilized species. And you were right to be afraid, because now you need that violence, and we will give it to you. But first we will discuss terms. Admiral Daeho Kim activated a holographic display above the conference table. Numbers and images appeared in the air between them. Ship counts, industrial output, energy generation, training statistics. Everything showed impossible growth. When you quarantined us, Kim said, you gave us a gift. You showed us exactly what we needed to become. You feared our violence. We made it into strength. You worried about our instability. We turned that into focus. You wanted us to stay home. We built the most powerful fleet this sector has ever seen, all in 50 years. Eugene stared at the numbers. 200 Dreadnought-class warships, 400 heavy cruisers, 800 destroyers, thousands of support vessels. This was more military power than the entire Coalition had possessed at its peak. How was this possible? A woman sat next to Kim. She was younger, dressed in diplomatic clothing rather than a military uniform. She spoke with a polite smile that did not reach her eyes. I am Ambassador Ji-young Park. Let me explain what happened after you rejected us. Ji-young touched the display and new images appeared. Earth from space, cities, factories, mining operations on asteroids and moons. Your rejection united us completely. Every nation on Earth agreed on one thing. We would never be weak enough to be dismissed again. We would never beg for acceptance. We would become strong enough that others would beg us instead. Every nation contributed, she continued. Every corporation. Every citizen. We taxed ourselves heavily. We worked long hours. We poured everything into building a military that could not be ignored. Children grew up knowing their purpose was to make humanity strong. It was not about conquest. It was about pride. Commander Minho spoke up. This level of development should have taken centuries. How did you do it so quickly? Another officer answered. She was young for her rank, maybe 30 years old, with sharp eyes and a confident posture. I am Captain Yoonji Lee of the UED's Indomitable. I will answer that question. We did not waste time on diplomacy or trade negotiations. We focused only on military technology. We studied every battle in galactic history that we could find in your public databases. We learned from everyone's mistakes. And we innovated. Yunji pulled up technical specifications for their weapons. Our kinetic weapons fire projectiles at 30% of light speed. Our plasma lances burn at temperatures hotter than the core of a star. Our shields use gravitational fields instead of energy barriers. And we never signed your weapons treaties because we were never part of your alliance. We use nuclear weapons. Lots of them. Heejin felt sick. Nuclear weapons were banned by coalition law. They were considered too brutal, too indiscriminate. The humans talked about them like they were normal. Because to them, they were normal. They had used nuclear weapons on themselves before they unified. They understood destruction in ways the coalition never had to. So you will help us? Heejin asked quietly. You will send your fleet to fight the Kraith? Admiral Kim leaned forward. We will help you, but you will pay for it. Not with money. With something more valuable, respect. He listed his terms. The coalition would issue a formal apology for the quarantine. Earth would receive full coalition membership with equal voting rights. All coalition technology would be shared with Earth, not just the basic science they had been shown before. And Earth would receive permanent mining rights to 3 resource-rich systems in the outer territories. The terms were harsh, humiliating, the kind of demands a conqueror makes to defeated enemies. But Heejin had no choice. She had no authority to agree without approval from the Council. She requested a secure communication link to Sanctuary Prime. The Council meeting was angry and loud. Half wanted to refuse the terms. We do not negotiate with demands like this, one counselor shouted. This is blackmail. This is revenge! They want to humiliate us. Of course they want revenge, Admiral Taman said tiredly. We insulted them. We isolated them. We treated them like children who could not be trusted. Now they have the power and we have nothing. Pride is a luxury we cannot afford. The Kraith will be at Sanctuary Prime in 2 weeks. We need help now. The vote was closer this time. 13 for accepting the terms. 9 against. Heejin felt the weight of history as she signed the agreement. This was the moment when the coalition admitted it was no longer the dominant power in this part of space. That title belonged to humanity now. Admiral Kim showed no emotion when she presented the signed document. He simply nodded and stood up. The United Earth Defense Force will deploy to the Hadro system immediately. We will arrive in 4 days. Make sure your ships stay out of our way. We do not coordinate well with others. We fight our own way. What does that mean? Commander Minho asked. We should coordinate our tactics. Plan our strategy together, Captain Yunji answered. It means we have studied your tactics. You favor precision strikes, minimum casualties, surgical removal of threats. You try to disable enemy ships instead of destroying them. You broadcast warnings before attacking. You offer chances to surrender. She paused and met Heejin's eyes. We do none of those things. When we attack to kill. No warnings, no mercy. No second chances. The Kraith have killed billions of your people. We will make sure they regret it. Every single one of them. The meeting ended. As they prepared to leave, Yunji offered to show them something. She led them through the station to an observation deck. Through the massive window they could see dozens of the huge warships floating in formation. Those are Dreadnought-class ships, Yunji explained. Each one is 5 kilometers long. Crew of 2,000. Armed with 600 weapon systems. They can operate independently for years, and they are designed for one purpose: total warfare. Heejin watched as more ships moved into formation. The coordination was perfect, like watching a school of predatory fish. How many will you send? She asked. All of them, Yunji said simply. 200 dreadnoughts, 400 cruisers. We do not believe in half measures. When humanity goes to war, we go completely. That is your entire fleet, Minho said in shock. You are leaving Earth undefended. Yunji smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. Earth has defense platforms, fighter squadrons, and planetary shields. But more importantly, after the Kraith see what we do to their fleet, no one will dare attack Earth. Fear is the best defense. As they watched, the massive fleet began to move. Engines flared to life. Ships accelerated toward the edge of the system where they would jump to faster than light speed. The precision was beautiful and terrifying. This was not a fleet hastily assembled. This was a military machine that had been training for decades, waiting for this moment. Yunji spoke quietly as they watched. You should warn your people. Tell Admiral Taman to position coalition ships away from the main battle. When we engage the Kraith, it will get very violent very quickly. Your crews are not prepared for what human warfare looks like. What do you mean? Hyejin asked, though she was afraid she already knew. I mean that your people fight with rules, Yunji said. Honor, restraint. The idea that war should be civilized. Humans learned long ago that war is never civilized. It is ugly and brutal and complete. We do not try to make it pretty. We try to make it effective. And against the Kraith, effectiveness means annihilation. The last of the human fleet disappeared into faster-than-light jumps. Space was empty again except for the defense platforms around Earth. Hyejin felt a cold sensation in her chest. They had asked for help. They were about to receive war. Real war. The kind that made humans nearly destroy themselves. The kind that forged them into killers. Commander Minho stood next to her, staring out at the stars. Do you think we made a mistake? He asked quietly. Asking them for help? Hyejin thought about the footage she had seen. Kraith bioships tearing through coalition fleets. Planets burning. Billions dead. Then she thought about the human warships. Cold. Efficient. Built by a species that understood violence at a fundamental level. I do not know, she answered honestly. We asked for salvation. But I think we have unleashed something we do not understand, something we cannot control. The Kraith threatened to destroy us. But the humans? The humans might change us forever. Their ship departed Luna Station and began the journey back to Hadros system. They would arrive just before the human fleet, just in time to see what happened when humanity went to war, just in time to learn why the coalition had been right to fear them, and wrong to reject them. Wing Commander Suman pulled her fighter into a sharp turn, barely dodging a spray of acid that melted space itself where she had been seconds before. Her squadron was down to 6 ships from the original 12. They had been fighting for 3 hours and it was not going well. Red 3 is down, someone shouted over the communication channel. Red 5, I cannot shake this thing, I need help. The Kraith bioships were everywhere. Massive living creatures the size of cities, covered in organic weapons and regenerating armor. They moved like predators coordinated by the hive mind that controlled them all. Coalition weapons barely scratched them. Energy beams burned their flesh, but it grew back in minutes. Missiles exploded against their hulls, but new tissue sealed the wounds. On Sanctuary Prime, Admiral Taman watched his fleet die. 30 ships destroyed in the first hour of the Kraith attack, 50 more damaged beyond repair. The defensive line was collapsing. In the medical bay, Dr. Jiho worked frantically on wounded crew members, knowing there would soon be too many to save. Admiral, his tactical officer said quietly, we have lost 50% of our fleet. I recommend full evacuation of Sanctuary Prime. We cannot hold this position. Taman stared at the battle display. Red markers showed dead ships. Orange showed damaged ones. Green showed intact vessels. There was very little green left. How long until the human fleet arrives? He asked. 20 minutes, sir. But I do not think we can last that long. Then space changed. It was not the normal shimmer of faster-than-light arrival. This was violent. Reality tore open in 200 places at once. Massive ships burst through the tiers, already moving at combat speed, already in perfect formation. The human fleet had arrived. Suman saw it happen from her cockpit. One moment she was desperately fighting 3 bioships at once. The next moment the space around her filled with enormous gray warships. Each one dwarfed the largest coalition battleship. They moved with impossible precision, sliding into a battle line that stretched across thousands of kilometers. All coalition vessels, a human voice said over all frequencies. This is Fleet Admiral Daeho Kim. Move to coordinates we are transmitting. Get away from the Kraith fleet. We are engaging now. The human ships did not wait for acknowledgement. They opened fire. Suman had never seen weapons like these. Streams of projectiles moving at impossible speeds smashed into Kraith bioships. When they hit, the creatures did not just take damage. They exploded. Entire sections of their bodies vaporized instantly. The kinetic energy was so extreme that even glancing hits tore them apart. Then came the plasma lances. Beams of superheated matter that burned hotter than stars cut through space. When they touched Kraith flesh, it did not regenerate. It turned to ash. The bioship screamed somehow, a sound that came through on multiple frequencies. They were dying. Actually dying. For the first time in this war, they were losing. What are those weapons? Suman whispered, watching a bioship the size of a mountain burn like paper. Her answer came in the form of nuclear detonations. Dozens of them. Hundreds. The humans were using atomic weapons like they were normal missiles. Each explosion created a sphere of destruction that consumed everything nearby. The Kraith's green bioluminescence was drowned in brilliant white and red fire. On Sanctuary Prime, Taman watched in horror and awe. "They are not trying to disable the Kraith ships," he said. "They are annihilating them." "Sir, the radiation levels," his science officer said. "The nuclear weapons are creating massive contamination in the battle space." "They do not care," Counselor Hyojin said from beside him. She had returned just before the battle started. "They are not thinking about cleaning up afterward. They are thinking about winning now. At any cost." The Kraith responded the way they always did, with overwhelming numbers. Thousands of bioships converged on the human fleet from all directions. It was a tactic that had destroyed every coalition defensive line. Surround the enemy, attack from all sides, use superior numbers to win through sheer mass. It did not work. The human dreadnoughts rotated their formations smoothly. Every ship had clear firing lines. They created overlapping kill zones where no Kraith vessel could survive for more than seconds. Their shields absorbed attacks that would have destroyed coalition ships. Their armor plating was so thick that Kraith acid barely scratched it. Within 15 minutes, the sky turned red. The combined glow of plasma weapons, nuclear explosions, and burning bioships created a crimson haze across the entire battle space. The Kraith's green light was completely gone. The space around Hadros' system looked like the inside of a star, red and angry and full of death. Admiral Kim's voice cut through every communication channel, broadcasting to both Coalition and Kraith forces. "This is Fleet Admiral Kim of the United Earth Defense Force. Kraith Swarm, you have attacked our allies. You have killed billions. You have 10 minutes to begin full retreat from this system. If you remain, we will show you what human warfare truly means." The Kraith did not retreat. The hive mind calculated that it still had superior numbers. It sent wave after wave of bioships at the human fleet. For every human ship, there were 50 Kraith vessels. In every previous battle, those odds meant victory for the swarm. Not this time. The humans had studied the Kraith. They had analyzed every battle record the Coalition provided. They knew the bioships regenerated quickly but not instantly. They knew the hive mind coordinated everything but had central nodes. They knew the swarm relied on overwhelming force, not sophisticated tactics. And humans had brought weapons specifically designed to counter all of it. Weapons that killed so fast regeneration was meaningless. Weapons that targeted the neural connections between bioships. Weapons that did not care about numbers because they could destroy dozens of ships with single attacks. The 10-minute deadline passed. The Kraith were still attacking, still sending more ships, still refusing to retreat because the hive mind did not understand fear. It only understood winning or losing based on calculations of force. Captain Yunji's voice came over the human fleet channel. "All dreadnoughts. Activate Protocol Omega. Target classification. All swarm bioships within 100,000 kilometers. Authorization code Alpha 77 Crimson. Execute." The human fleet stopped firing. For a moment there was eerie silence. The Kraith bioships pressed forward, sensing weakness. Then every human dreadnought released thousands of small objects. They looked like missiles at first, but they moved differently. They scattered in every direction, each one choosing its own target. "What are those?" Taman asked his sensor operator. "I do not know, sir. They are too small to be standard missiles. But they are powered. And they are intelligent. They are hunting." The small objects reached the Kraith fleet. Each one targeted a different bioship. And then they began to adapt. Suman watched through her cockpit as the hunter-killer drones analyzed their targets in real time. Acid-resistant hull? Switch to corrosive agents that ate through it. Regenerating tissue? Deploy biological weapons that prevented healing. Energy shields? Overload them with electromagnetic pulses. But the most devastating effect was on the hive mind itself. The drones targeted the neural link organisms that connected all the bioships together. When those nodes died, the Kraith lost coordination. Ships began to fire randomly. Some attacked each other by mistake. The precise swarm tactics that had destroyed the Coalition fell apart into chaos. "They are breaking apart," Hyojin said in shock. "The swarm is actually breaking apart." The humans did not stop. They pressed their advantage without mercy. Wounded bioships that would have been left alone by Coalition forces were hunted down and destroyed. Ships trying to retreat were chased and killed. There were no warnings, no chances to surrender, no mercy at all. In the medical bay, Dr. Jiho stopped working and stared at the screens showing the battle. "This is what they meant," he whispered. "This is what Captain Yunji warned us about. They do not fight to win battles. They fight to destroy enemies completely." The battle lasted 6 hours total. When it was over, the Kraith had lost over 3,000 bioships. The human fleet had 8 dreadnoughts damaged and 1 destroyed. The casualty ratio was beyond anything the Coalition had ever achieved. 15,000 Kraith vessels eliminated for every human ship lost. The remaining Kraith finally understood. The hive mind calculated new probabilities based on this battle. It realized that continuing to fight humans would mean extinction. For the first time in recorded history, the Kraith swarm retreated. They jumped to faster-than-light speed and fled the system. The human fleet pursued them. Not to observe, not to harass, to hunt. They chased the fleeing bioships for 3 days, destroying every single one they could catch. Admiral Kim wanted to send a message that the Coalition had never been able to send. That attacking their allies meant death, complete and total death. When the pursuit finally ended, Suman landed her fighter on Sanctuary Prime. She was exhausted and covered in sweat. She had watched the entire battle. She had seen what human warfare looked like. It was effective. It was terrifying. And it was nothing like what the Coalition practiced. She found herself in the same medical bay where Dr. Jiho was still treating wounded. Coalition wounded. The humans had very few casualties because their ships were so well protected. Most of the injured were from the fighting before. 6 months after the Battle of Hadros, the combined Coalition human fleet pushed deep into Kraith territory. They had reclaimed 20 systems. But the partnership was becoming more difficult with each victory. The two forces did not fight the same way. They did not think the same way. And those differences were starting to cause problems. Admiral Taman stood in the command center of Sanctuary Prime, watching reports come in from the latest liberation. A world called Terran 4, occupied by the Kraith for 2 years. The population had been enslaved and partially converted into biomass for the swarm. Coalition forces had fought to free them with minimal damage to the planet. The humans had different ideas. When a Kraith biostation refused to surrender, Admiral Kim authorized an orbital strike. The station was destroyed completely. Along with it, several thousand Kraith organisms that might have been captured and studied. The Coalition wanted prisoners and information. The humans wanted enemy extinction. Counselor Hyejin called an emergency meeting with Admiral Kim. They met on neutral ground, a small diplomatic ship between the two fleets. She did not hide her anger. "You are using excessive force. That biostation could have been captured. We could have learned valuable intelligence about the swarm." Kim sat across from her with his usual emotionless expression. The biostation was a military target. It was coordinating Kraith forces in 3 systems. Destroying it saved lives. Coalition lives. Human lives. That is more important than intelligence gathering. "You are not liberators," Hyejin said. "You are conquerors with better public relations. You do not care about minimizing casualties. You do not care about the long-term consequences. You only care about winning quickly." Kim leaned forward slightly. "We are pragmatists, Counselor. The Kraith showed you mercy in the beginning. They infiltrated your world slowly. They gave you time to negotiate and prepare. That was their mistake. It gave you hope that you could reason with them. We will not make that same mistake. When we fight to end the war as quickly as possible, because long wars kill more people than short, brutal ones." The meeting ended without agreement. Hyejin returned to Sanctuary Prime frustrated and worried. The humans were winning the war, but they were doing it in ways that made her uncomfortable. Ways that reminded her why the Coalition had quarantined Earth in the first place. On the liberated world of Terran 4, Commander Minho led Coalition ground forces to help with recovery efforts. What he found there changed his understanding of the war. Mass graves, processing facilities where living beings had been converted into biological material, survivors who had been tortured and experimented on. The Terran people, a species that looked like large birds with intelligent eyes, gathered around the human soldiers. They brought offerings. They sang songs of gratitude. They treated the humans like divine warriors sent to save them. The worship made Minho deeply uncomfortable. One of the human soldiers, a young lieutenant named Taehyung, stood next to him as they watched the Terran celebration. "They do not understand," Taehyung said quietly. "We are not heroes. We are just good at violence." Minho looked at him. "You do not believe you are saving them?" Taehyung shrugged. "We are saving them from the Kraith. But we are not nice people, Commander. We are effective people. There is a difference. Humans learned long ago that being moral while fighting existential threats is a luxury that gets you killed. You wanted us civilized, but you needed us savage. You cannot have both." The campaign continued. System after system fell to the combined fleet. But the tension between Coalition and human forces grew worse. Coalition commanders complained that humans refused to coordinate. Human commanders complained that Coalition tactics were too slow and cautious. Small arguments became bigger disagreements. Then they discovered the location of a major Kraith command node hidden in an asteroid field. This was a critical target. The node coordinated swarm activities across dozens of systems. Destroying it would cripple Kraith operations throughout the region. Admiral Taeman proposed a joint operation. Coalition fighters would be better suited for navigating the dense asteroid field. Human bombers had the firepower to destroy the hardened target. Working together, they could achieve what neither could do alone. For once, Admiral Kim agreed. Wing Commander Suman was chosen to lead the Coalition fighter squadron. She had fought alongside humans at Hydros. She understood their tactics better than most Coalition officers. She was also developing a grudging respect for their effectiveness, even if she did not approve of their brutality. Captain Yoonji briefed both squadrons together. It was the first time Coalition and human pilots had gathered in the same room for planning. The cultural differences were obvious. Coalition pilots sat quietly, listening carefully. Human pilots joked and laughed, treating the dangerous mission like it was routine. "The target is here," Yoonji said, pointing to a holographic display of the asteroid field. "It is protected by elite Kraith guardian organisms. Very dangerous, very aggressive. Coalition fighters will draw their attention and create an opening. Human bombers will deliver plasma charges to the central node. Questions?" One of the human pilots raised his hand. "What is the retreat plan if things go wrong?" Yoonji smiled coldly. "Things will not go wrong. We complete the mission or we die trying. That is the plan." The Coalition pilots looked uncomfortable. The human pilots nodded like this was normal. Suman realized that this fundamental difference in attitude was what made humans so dangerous. They were willing to die to win. Not as a last resort, as a standard operating procedure. The mission launched 6 hours later. Suman led her squadron into the asteroid field first. The space was crowded with spinning rocks, making navigation difficult. Her sensors screamed warnings as Kraith guardian organisms detected them and moved to attack. These were not the regular bioships they had fought before. These were specialized defenders, smaller but much faster. They moved between asteroids like sharks, attacking with precision and coordination. Within minutes, 2 Coalition fighters were destroyed. "Red Squadron, this is Wing Commander Suman. Execute evasive pattern Delta. Draw them away from the target zone. Human bombers, you are clear for approach." The human bombers came in fast and low, using the asteroids for cover, but the Kraith had a final defense layer around the command node itself, energy shields that the bombers could not penetrate. The plasma charges exploded harmlessly against the barrier. "The shields are too strong," the lead bomber pilot reported. "We need someone to get inside and disable them manually." Suman knew what that meant. A suicide run, flying directly into the defense grid to create an opening. Someone would have to sacrifice themselves. She was about to volunteer when Lieutenant Taehyung's voice came over the channel. "I will do it. I have the angle. Beginning attack run now." "Wait," Suman shouted. "That is a death sentence. No time, Commander. This is what humans do. We finish the mission." Taehyung's fighter accelerated toward the command node, dodging energy beams and biomissiles. His shields flared and failed. His hull took damage, but he stayed on target. Suman made a decision that probably saved his life and definitely changed hers. She followed him. 2 fighters had a better chance than one. She matched his course, drawing fire away from him. They flew through hell together, neither one willing to let the other die alone. Taehyung's fighter took a direct hit that should have killed him. His engines failed. His weapons went offline, but he managed to fire one last missile at the shield generator before his ship began spinning out of control. The shields collapsed. The human bombers fired immediately. Their plasma charges hit the command node dead center. The massive biostation exploded in a brilliant flash, fragments scattering into the asteroid field. Suman caught Tai-hyung's dying fighter in a tractor beam and dragged it clear of the explosion. She guided both ships out of the asteroid field, ignoring the remaining Kraith Guardians who were now leaderless and confused. Back on Sanctuary Prime, medical teams pulled Tae-hyung from his wrecked fighter. He was alive but badly injured. As they carried him to the medical bay, he looked at Suman and smiled. "See, we make a good team. Coalition precision and human recklessness." Later, Suman visited him in recovery. His injuries would heal, but he would not fly combat missions again. He seemed at peace with that. They talked for hours about tactics, about philosophy, about what it meant to fight a war. "Do you regret it?" she asked him.
Fighting this way?
"Risking everything?" Tae-hyung thought for a moment. "No, because it works. Your way is cleaner, more moral, but the Kraith do not care about morality. They only understand strength. And sometimes being strong means being cruel. That is what humans learned. That is why we win." News of the mission spread through both fleets. It was the first major operation where coalition and human forces truly worked together. The success proved they could cooperate when necessary, but it also highlighted their differences. Admiral Taemin met with Counselor Heejin in private. They stood looking out at the combined fleet, hundreds of ships from two very different civilizations. "We cannot continue like this," Taemin said. "We are allies but not friends. Partners but not equals. Something has to change. What can we do?" Heejin asked. "We need them. Without human military power, the Kraith would destroy us. But with them, we are..." The combined fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kraith Prime system. What they saw made even the human commanders pause. The entire system was alive. The homeworld was covered in organic structures that pulsed with bioluminescence. Moons had been converted into breeding stations. Asteroids were wrapped in living tissue. This was the heart of the swarm. Trillions of Kraith organisms lived here. The sensors could barely count them all. This was not just a military target. This was their entire species concentrated in one system. Whatever happened here would determine the future of the galaxy. The hive mind broadcast a message on all frequencies. It was the first time the Kraith had ever communicated with words instead of violence. "We surrender. We will dismantle our war fleets. We will release all captive species. We will withdraw from all occupied territories. Please spare our world." Admiral Taemin called an emergency command meeting. Coalition and human leaders gathered via hologram to discuss the surrender. The Coalition admirals were relieved. The war could end without more bloodshed. They could return home and begin rebuilding. Admiral Kim had different thoughts. "We should not accept their surrender. Not like this. The Kraith can regenerate. They can rebuild. They can wait 100 years and attack again when we are weak. The only way to ensure galactic security is to sterilize their homeworld. Make it impossible for them to return as a threat." The room erupted. Coalition officers shouted their objections. "That is genocide," Counselor Heejin said. "We are not murderers. We fight to defend ourselves, not to exterminate entire species. If we do this, we are no better than the Kraith." Kim remained calm. "It is not genocide. It is prevention. Your mercy allowed the Kraith to grow from a small threat into something that nearly destroyed you. You negotiated when you should have acted. You showed restraint when you should have shown strength. I am proposing we do not make that mistake again." "There are trillions of them down there," Heejin argued. "Most of them are not warriors. They are workers, builders, children. How can you justify killing them all? How can you justify risking another war?" Kim replied, "How many Coalition citizens died because you hesitated to act decisively against the Kraith the first time? How many more will die if we let them survive and rebuild? I am trying to save lives, just not theirs." The argument continued for hours. The Coalition was divided. Some agreed with Kim that the Kraith were too dangerous to leave alive. Others believed that accepting the surrender was the only moral choice. Finally, Admiral Taemin called for a vote. Taemin had to make the hardest decision of his life. He thought about the billions who had died during the war. The worlds burned. The species enslaved. The Coalition fleets destroyed. All because they had not taken the Kraith seriously until it was almost too late. But he also thought about what it meant to be civilized. To have principles that mattered even when they were difficult. To be better than your enemies. To show mercy even when revenge seemed justified. "We accept the Kraith surrender," Taemin said finally. But we do not trust humanity to enforce it alone. This will be a joint occupation. Coalition peacekeepers will monitor the Kraith. Human forces will provide security. Together we will dismantle their military capability while allowing their species to survive. The vote was close. 13 coalition leaders supported the compromise. 9 voted to follow Kim's recommendation. The human delegation accepted the decision, but their disapproval was obvious. Captain Yunji spoke for many of them when she said, "We won the war. Now we have to win the peace. That is the part we are not good at." The occupation began. Kraith Prime was placed under strict control. Their biostations were dismantled. Their war fleets were destroyed. Their population was monitored constantly. It was humiliating for the once dominant swarm, but they were alive. That was more than they had offered their victims. 5 years passed. The galaxy slowly recovered from the war. New alliances formed. Old wounds began to heal. But nothing was the same as before. The coalition had changed fundamentally, and so had its relationship with humanity. Earth was now a full coalition member, but it was not just another member. It was the most powerful military force in the alliance. Human technology had spread throughout coalition space. Human tactical doctrines were studied in military academies. Human weapons were copied and adapted by other species. Counselor Hyejin had become the coalition's permanent ambassador to Earth. She spent most of her time on Luna Station, working to build understanding between humans and other species. It was difficult work. The cultural differences ran deep, but slowly progress was made. Wing Commander Suman had taken a new assignment. She trained mixed coalition human fighter squadrons, teaching both sides to work together. Her methods combined coalition precision with human aggressiveness. The results were impressive. A new generation of pilots who understood both philosophies. One of her best students was a young, human pilot named Minji. She flew with the caution and planning of a coalition officer, but the boldness of a human warrior. She represented what the future might look like. A blend of two cultures that had once seemed incompatible. Admiral Taman had retired from active military service, but he remained an important advisor on defense matters. In his private quarters, he kept a personal log where he recorded his thoughts. His final entry before leaving the military was simple but haunting. "We asked for salvation and received conquest. Not conquest of us, but alongside us. I fear the day when humanity's interests diverge from ours, because now I know what they are truly capable of. They are not our partners. They are our apex predators temporarily on our side. I hope that never changes, because if it does, we will learn what the Kraith learned, that humans do not fight to win. They fight to end things permanently." Admiral Daeho Kim had been promoted to Supreme Commander of Coalition Defense Forces. It was a position that gave him authority over all military operations in Coalition space. Some saw this as humanity's reward for saving the galaxy. Others saw it as humanity taking control. Hyejin met with him one last time before he assumed his new role. They sat in the same conference room on Luna Station, where they had first negotiated Earth's involvement in the war. So much had changed since then, but some things remained the same. The tension, the mutual respect, the fundamental differences in how they saw the universe. "Do you regret how brutal you were during the war?" Hyejin asked him. Kim thought for a long moment before answering. "No. You called us because you needed monsters. We delivered. What I regret is that you ever put us in a position where being monsters was necessary. If you had accepted us 50 years ago, if you had worked with us as equals, maybe things would have been different. Maybe the Kraith would never have grown so powerful. Maybe we could have stopped them without so much death. Or maybe you would have destroyed the coalition from within," Hyejin said. "Your way of fighting, your willingness to use any weapon, your lack of restraint. These things frighten us. They always will." "Good," Kim said. "Fear keeps people careful. The galaxy should be afraid of humanity, because that fear will prevent the next war. No one will attack the coalition now. Not when they know humans will respond with total force. We did not just save you. We made you untouchable." Their meeting ended. Hyejin walked through Luna Station toward her transport ship. She passed human soldiers and coalition diplomats working side by side. She saw mixed crews operating warships together. She saw the future taking shape for better or worse. In the docking bay, she encountered Captain Taehyung. He had recovered from his injuries, but, as predicted, could no longer fly combat missions. Instead, he worked as a tactical instructor, teaching new pilots the lessons learned from the war. He smiled when he saw her. "Counselor," he said respectfully. "Heading back to Sanctuary Prime?" "Yes, one of my last trips as ambassador. I am being reassigned to help rebuild our worlds." They walked together toward her ship. Through the windows, Earth rotated below them, beautiful and peaceful from space. It was hard to believe this world had nearly destroyed itself. Hard to believe these people were capable of the violence she had witnessed. "Do you know what the galaxy will remember?" Taehyung asked. "Not that we saved you, but that we could have chosen not to. And the next time someone threatens the coalition, they will remember that too. They expected help. They got war, and war is what humanity does best." Hyejin boarded her ship and departed. As Luna Station grew smaller behind her, she thought about everything that had happened. The desperate plea for help, the cold reception, the red sky over Hadros, the brutal campaign, the difficult peace. She thought about what Taehyung had said, about how the galaxy would remember, and she realized he was right. This war had not just been about survival. It had been about power, about who controlled the future, about whether force or diplomacy would shape the next era of galactic civilization. The coalition had asked for help. They had received human dreadnoughts that turned the sky red with fire. They had been saved, but at a price. The price was knowing that they were no longer the dominant force in their own alliance. That title belonged to humanity now, and perhaps Hyejin thought that was how it should be. The coalition had built a civilization based on peace and cooperation. It was beautiful, but fragile. Humanity had